Hello everybody, my name is Jean-Luc. Welcome to Frame Check, where we break down films frame by frame. Today, we're going to be analyzing and taking a deep dive into the long-awaited Backrooms movie. Before we get into the review, for those who don't know, the Backrooms is an internet horror concept that started with a simple image of empty yellow hallways. The idea is that if you somehow no-clip out of reality, you will end up trapped in this endless maze of unsettling rooms and spaces that feel strangely familiar. The concept exploded in popularity after Kane Parsons, also known as Kane Pixels, created a series of found footage Backrooms videos on YouTube in 2022. Those videos helped turn the Backrooms from a creepy internet image into a full story with its own lore and characters. Today we're going to be breaking down this movie into 5 parts: set design, pacing, acting, music, and plot. Starting with set design, and I have to say, this movie absolutely nailed it. As somebody who is heavily invested in the Backrooms in 2022 and watched Kane Parsons' original videos, this was probably the thing I was most excited to see. And honestly, I don't think they could have done a much better job. The second we enter the Backrooms, it feels right. The yellow wallpaper, the carpet flooring, the endless hallways. It all feels exactly how the Backrooms should feel. I wasn't just watching a movie set. I was genuinely there. What makes it even more impressive is learning how much work went into creating these environments. Kane Parsons talked during an interview at CCXP Mexico about how he would first create these locations in Blender, and then the team would physically build them in real life. He also mentioned that they went through around 50 wallpaper tests just to get the color right. On top of that, the set itself was reportedly around 30,000 square feet. People working on the film would occasionally get lost trying to find their way back around it. And honestly, after watching the movie, that doesn't surprise me at all. The attention to detail is insane. What I also found really interesting was how the movie uses the environments almost like memories. The Christmas tree scene is a perfect example. Everything around the tree is dark, and all you can really see are the lights. It instantly reminded me of waking up on Christmas morning as a kid, seeing the tree glowing in the darkness before the sun came up. The laundry room scene does something similar. The room feels slightly off and disorienting, almost like the way childhood memories can feel distorted when you look back on them. That's one thing I think the movie understands really well. The Backrooms aren't just creepy hallways, they're familiar places that somehow feel wrong. And because of that, the world feels unsettling without always needing a monster on screen. Overall, the set design was incredible and easily one of the strongest aspects of the movie. Moving on to pacing, this movie absolutely understands how to build tension. Right from the opening scene, we're thrown into complete uncertainty. We see this grainy footage of a man running through an unfamiliar place, and we have absolutely no idea what's going on. We don't know where he is, what he's running from, or what could be waiting around the next corner. That uncertainty immediately pulls you in. One thing I really appreciated was how patient the movie is. It doesn't rush to show you everything right away. Instead, it constantly keeps you wondering about what's about to happen. A great example early on is when a man makes a distress call. Nothing happens at first. And then suddenly, a seagull appears out of nowhere. It's not even a major scare, but moments like that keep your nerves on edge because you start expecting something to jump out at any second. The movie does this throughout its entire runtime. The laundry scene was probably the biggest example for me. While Bobby is exploring every corner around the room feels dangerous, I found myself staring into the background trying to spot something before the movie showed it. There were moments where I thought I could see a face or figure hiding somewhere, only to realize it wasn't actually there. The movie makes you paranoid. By the time the lights begin flickering and the entity finally appears, your nerves are already shot because you spent the last several minutes expecting something to happen. And that's why the scene works so well. A lot of horror movies rely heavily on jump scares. This movie relies more on anticipation. It creates tension first and then pays it off later. Because of that, even simple moments become stressful. The pacing constantly keeps you engaged because you're always expecting the next thing to happen. Now let's talk about the acting. This cast includes some pretty recognizable names, like Chiwetel Ejiofor and Mark Duplass, along with several lesser-known actors. And overall, I thought everyone did a great job. Kane Parsons has talked about using characters as entry points into these surreal worlds, and I think that's exactly what happens here. The characters help ground a setting that could easily become too abstract. For me, Clark was easily the standout. His character starts off as somebody who's isolated and struggling. It feels like his life has completely left him behind. Nobody really understands him. Nobody seems to care about him, and he's essentially living alone with very little direction. Then he discovers the Backrooms. At first, it gives him purpose. It gives him somebody to focus on. But as the movie progresses, that curiosity slowly turns into obsession. That's what I found so interesting about his character. The movie isn't just showing somebody exploring a mysterious place, it's showing somebody being consumed by that mystery. I also liked how different characters reacted differently to the Backrooms. Some approach it with fear, some approach it with curiosity, and some even became obsessed with it. Those different reactions made everything more realistic. Overall, I wouldn't say the acting is necessarily the strongest aspect of this movie, but the performances absolutely do their job and help keep the story emotionally grounded. Now, unfortunately, this is where I think the movie loses some points. Music is extremely important to me when it comes to movies. A great soundtrack can build suspense, create emotion, sometimes become just as memorable as the scenes themselves. And because of that, I was honestly a little disappointed here. As somebody who followed the Backrooms community years ago, I was really hoping the movie would incorporate some of the music that became associated with the original videos. Songs like Warm Nights, Numbers, 647 became a huge part of the atmosphere surrounding the Backrooms online. Those tracks had this strange mix of comfort and uneasiness that perfectly matched the concept. Instead, the movie mostly goes with a different direction. And while I don't think the soundtrack is bad, I honestly can't remember much of it. That's the biggest problem for me. When I think about the movie, I immediately remember the visuals, I remember the environments, I remember certain scenes, but I don't remember the music. The fact that 647 ended up being used in the trailer made it even more disappointing because it got a lot of long-term fans excited about what the soundtrack might be. Again, I don't think the music is terrible, I just think it was a missed opportunity, especially considering how important sound and atmosphere have always been for the Backrooms community. And finally, let's talk about the plot. Going to this movie, I expected the environments and horror to be the main focus. What surprised me was how much I ended up caring about the story. At its core, this movie is really about obsession. Clark starts off as a lonely, isolated person who feels disconnected from the world around him. Then he finds something bigger than himself, something nobody fully understands, and he becomes completely consumed by it. The deeper he goes into the Backrooms, the more detached from reality he becomes. And I honestly think that's what makes the story work. The Backrooms themselves almost become a reflection of Clark's mental state. The deeper he explores, the more lost he becomes both physically and mentally. I also thought Dr. Mary Klein played an important role in the story. She seems to be one of the only people who genuinely cares about Clark and wants to help him. That's why some of the later scenes between them hit as hard as they do. The dinner scene especially stood out to me because it shows just how far Clark has fallen. At that point, he's no longer chasing answers, he's completely trapped inside his own obsession. The movie also does a good job expanding the lore through async. We learn that even the people studying the Backrooms don't fully understand what they've discovered. They know it's there, they know it's dangerous, but they still can't explain it. And I think that's one of the smartest decisions this movie makes. The Backrooms are scary because they're unknown. If the movie explained everything, it would have taken away a lot of that mystery. By the end, Clark's obsession ultimately becomes his downfall. He spends the movie searching for answers only to be consumed by the very thing he became obsessed with understanding. Overall, I thought the plot did an excellent job balancing mystery, horror, and character development while still staying true to what makes the Backrooms so interesting in the first place. Overall, I thought the Backrooms was a fantastic movie. The set design was incredible, the pacing constantly kept me on edge, the acting was solid across the board, and the story ended up being much stronger than I expected. My biggest criticism would definitely be the music. I think there was a huge opportunity to connect the film back to the original Backrooms community through its soundtrack, and unfortunately, I don't think it fully took advantage of that. But outside of that, even with its flaws, I still think it's a really strong adaptation of the Backrooms concept and a movie I'd recommend to anybody. If you're a fan of Kane Parsons' original videos, there's a lot here to appreciate. And if you're completely new to the Backrooms, I think this movie does a great job introducing you to the strange and unsettling world. Now for the moment you guys have all been waiting for, the score. For all of you guys that are new, I rate on a 0 to 10 score. 0 being the worst movie I've ever seen, anything, I would never ever watch it again. I think it should burn. I think it should be put in the trash. It's the worst piece of media I've ever seen in my entire life. 10, which is almost never earned, is I would buy a $1 million ticket for it. I would do virtually anything to go watch this piece of media. Now, putting into all the thought, 7-1 is going to be my score today, and I appreciate everybody for watching this video. Make sure to like and subscribe and stay tuned for the next episode.